Evelyn stirred, her senses slowly returning as she felt the cold, hard surface beneath her. Confusion clouded her mind as she opened her eyes, only to find herself surrounded by darkness. She blinked, her vision adjusting to the dim light filtering through the cracks. The realization of her surroundings hit her like a thunderbolt. She was in a coffin, buried alive. Panic surged through her veins as she struggled to comprehend the impossible situation she was in. Desperation clawed at her chest as she pounded on the wooden lid above her. Her cries for help were muffled by the earth encasing her. Each breath became a battle, the air growing thinner by the second. Fear gnawed at her sanity, but Evelyn refused to succumb. With every ounce of strength she possessed, she continued to beat against her prison, hoping against hope that someone would hear her. As the minutes dragged on, Evelyn's mind raced with memories of her life. She had been a successful businesswoman, a millionaire with a seemingly perfect life. How had she ended up here, buried alive at her own funeral? Her thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion and terror. The last thing she remembered was feeling unwell, then darkness. Now, she was trapped, teetering on the edge of oblivion. Just as her strength was about to give out, Evelyn heard faint voices above her. Her heart leaped with a mixture of hope and fear. She listened intently, straining to make out the words. The voices grew clearer, and she recognized them. It was Richard, her husband, and Claire, her close friend. Relief washed over her, but it was short-lived. Their conversation made her blood run cold. Hidden in the shadows of her own grave, Evelyn listened in horror as Richard and Claire talked. Their words were a venomous mix of deceit and betrayal. She learned that her supposed death was no accident. Richard had orchestrated it, driven by greed and the desire to claim her fortune. Claire had been his willing accomplice, playing her part in the sinister plot. Evelyn's heart shattered as the truth unveiled itself. Richard's voice was cold and calculating as he recounted his meticulous plan to Claire. He spoke of how he had manipulated events, ensuring Evelyn's death appeared natural. His cruelty knew no bounds, and Evelyn's disbelief turned to a burning rage. She had trusted him, loved him, and he had repaid her with treachery. The depth of his betrayal was unfathomable. Claire, far from the innocent bystander Evelyn had believed her to be, revealed her own ambitious nature. She had been Richard's partner in crime, not just his lover. Her role in the plot was as integral as his. Claire's ambition and lack of scruples were staggering. Evelyn's mind reeled with the realization that the people closest to her had conspired against her, turning her life into a living nightmare. But Evelyn was not one to be easily defeated. Even in the face of such betrayal, a spark of determination ignited within her. She would not let Richard and Claire get away with their heinous crime. She would find a way to escape this tomb and expose them for the monsters they were. Her unexpected resurrection would be her weapon, and she would use it to gather evidence and allies in her quest for justice. With every ounce of strength she could muster, Evelyn focused on her escape. She recalled the emergency latch she had insisted on installing in the coffin, a precaution she had never thought she would need. Her fingers fumbled in the darkness, finally finding the latch. She pulled it with all her might, the lid creaking open. Fresh air rushed in, and Evelyn inhaled deeply, her resolve strengthening. Evelyn emerged from her grave, her body weak but her spirit unbroken. She had been given a second chance, and she would not waste it. Stealthily, she made her way out of the cemetery, her mind racing with plans. She needed to gather evidence of Richard and Claire's conspiracy. She would approach her lawyer and her trusted friends, those who had not been tainted by deceit. Her heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination as she approached her lawyer's office. She had to move quickly, for Richard and Claire would soon realize she was not dead. Evelyn laid out her story, providing every detail she could remember. Her lawyer, a loyal friend, was shocked but resolute. Together, they would build a case, collecting evidence and preparing for the confrontation that would inevitably come. The next few days were a whirlwind of covert meetings and strategic planning. Evelyn's friends rallied around her, offering their support and resources. They believed in her innocence and were eager to see justice served. Evelyn's strength grew with each passing day, her resolve unshakable. She was determined to confront Richard and Claire, to reveal the truth and reclaim her life. Finally, the day of the confrontation arrived. Evelyn, now fully prepared, walked into the room where Richard and Claire waited. Their faces paled as they saw her, alive and resolute. The shock in their eyes was priceless, and Evelyn took a moment to savor it. She stood tall, ready to unleash the storm she had carefully crafted. Her unexpected survival would be the catalyst for their downfall. As Evelyn revealed the truth, Richard and Claire's facade crumbled. They were caught in their web of lies, unable to escape the evidence she had gathered. The room was charged with tension as Evelyn laid out her accusations, each word a nail in their coffin. Her voice was steady, filled with the power of her conviction. The time for justice had come, and she would see it through to the end. As Evelyn hid in the shadows, her heart pounded in her chest, each beat a reminder of her fragile existence. She strained to hear every word as Richard and Claire spoke in hushed tones. Their voices, once familiar and comforting, now dripped with malice and deceit. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat as the full extent of their betrayal began to unfold before her. Richard's words were like knives, each one cutting deeper into Evelyn's soul. He spoke with a cold detachment, recounting the events that led to her death. Evelyn felt her world shatter as Richard confessed his darkest secrets to Claire. He detailed his meticulous planning, leaving nothing to chance. Evelyn's heart ached with a mix of anger and heartbreak, her trust in Richard completely obliterated. Claire's response was equally chilling. She listened intently, her eyes gleaming with a sinister delight. She encouraged Richard, her voice a poisonous whisper in the dark. Evelyn's mind raced as she processed the twisted partnership between the two people she had once trusted implicitly. The realization that Claire had been complicit in the plan to end her life was almost too much to bear. Evelyn's fingers dug into the dirt beneath her, grounding herself as the horror of the situation sank in. She felt like an invisible ghost, witnessing her own funeral and the betrayal of those she loved. Richard continued to speak, his voice dripping with greed as he discussed the fortune he would inherit. Evelyn's blood boiled, her rage bubbling just beneath the surface. As Richard and Claire delved deeper into their conversation, Evelyn's resolve hardened. She would not be a victim. She would be a force of reckoning. She listened carefully, noting every detail, every piece of evidence she could use against them. Her mind was a whirlwind of plans and possibilities. She would turn their betrayal into their downfall, exposing their treachery to the world. The intensity of the moment was almost unbearable, but Evelyn held her ground. Richard's arrogance was palpable as he boasted about the future he had envisioned. He spoke of taking over Evelyn's businesses, of living a life of luxury and power. Claire's laughter echoed in the dim light, a chilling reminder of the depth of their betrayal. Evelyn's fury burned brighter, fueling her determination. Evelyn's heart pounded in her ears as she listened to the details of Richard's plan. He described how he had manipulated events, ensuring her demise appeared natural. The cruelty in his voice was unmistakable, each word a testament to his true nature. Evelyn's disbelief turned to a burning rage. She had loved him, trusted him, and he had repaid her with treachery. The depth of his betrayal was unfathomable. Claire, far from being an innocent bystander, revealed her own ambitious nature. She had been an active participant in the plot, not just Richard's lover. Her role was integral, her ambition and lack of scruples staggering. Evelyn's mind reeled with the realization that the people closest to her had conspired against her, turning her life into a living nightmare. The betrayal was a bitter pill to swallow, but Evelyn was not one to be easily defeated. Even in the face of such betrayal, a spark of determination ignited within her. She would not let Richard and Claire get away with their heinous crime. She would find a way to escape this tomb and expose them for the monsters they were. Her unexpected resurrection would be her weapon, and she would use it to gather evidence and allies in her quest for justice. With every ounce of strength she could muster, Evelyn focused on her escape. She recalled the emergency latch she had insisted on installing in the coffin, a precaution she had never thought she would need. Her fingers fumbled in the darkness, finally finding the latch. She pulled it with all her might, the lid creaking open. Fresh air rushed in, and Evelyn inhaled deeply, her resolve strengthening. Evelyn emerged from her grave, her body weak but her spirit unbroken. She had been given a second chance, and she would not waste it. Stealthily, she made her way out of the cemetery, her mind racing with plans. She needed to gather evidence of Richard and Claire's conspiracy. She would approach her lawyer and her trusted friends, those who had not been tainted by deceit. Her heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination as she approached her lawyer's office. She had to move quickly, for Richard and Claire would soon realize she was not dead. Evelyn laid out her story, providing every detail she could remember. Her lawyer, a loyal friend, was shocked but resolute. Together, they would build a case, collecting evidence and preparing for the confrontation that would inevitably come. The next few days were a whirlwind of covert meetings and strategic planning. Evelyn's friends rallied around her, offering their support and resources. They believed in her innocence and were eager to see justice served. Evelyn's strength grew with each passing day, her resolve unshakable. She was determined to confront Richard and Claire, to reveal the truth and reclaim her life. Richard stood in the dimly lit room, his expression unreadable as he began to speak. His voice was low and calm, a stark contrast to the gravity of his words. He detailed the sinister plan that had led to Evelyn's death, recounting every step with chilling precision. Evelyn listened in stunned silence, her mind struggling to comprehend the depths of his cruelty. Richard's true nature was finally being revealed. As Richard spoke, the mask of a loving husband slipped away, exposing the heart of a cold-blooded manipulator. He described how he had orchestrated events, ensuring that Evelyn's demise would appear natural. His meticulous planning left nothing to chance, and his lack of remorse was evident in every word. Evelyn's heart ached with a mix of anger and heartbreak, her trust in Richard completely obliterated. Richard's cruelty was laid bare as he spoke of his motivations. Greed and ambition had driven him to plot against the woman he had once vowed to love and cherish. He recounted how he had carefully manipulated circumstances, exploiting Evelyn's vulnerabilities to achieve his goals. Each word he spoke was a dagger to Evelyn's heart, her disbelief turning to a burning rage. Claire listened with rapt attention, her eyes gleaming with a sinister delight. She encouraged Richard, her voice a poisonous whisper in the dark. Evelyn's mind raced as she processed the twisted partnership between the two people she had once trusted implicitly. The realization that Claire had been complicit in the plan to end her life was almost too much to bear. Richard's arrogance was palpable as he continued to speak. He boasted about his success, reveling in the power he believed he now held. He spoke of taking over Evelyn's businesses, of living a life of luxury and control. Claire's laughter echoed in the dim light, a chilling reminder of the depth of their betrayal. Evelyn's fury burned brighter, fueling her determination to bring them down. As Richard detailed his plans, Evelyn's resolve hardened. She would not be a victim. She would be a force of reckoning. She listened carefully, noting every detail, every piece of evidence she could use against them. Her mind was a whirlwind of plans and possibilities. She would turn their betrayal into their downfall, exposing their treachery to the world. The intensity of the moment was almost unbearable, but Evelyn held her ground. Richard's arrogance was unmistakable as he described his vision for the future. He spoke of a new life, one free from the constraints of his marriage to Evelyn. Claire's enthusiastic agreement was like salt in Evelyn's wounds. The depth of their betrayal was staggering, but Evelyn's spirit remained unbroken. Evelyn's heart pounded in her ears as she listened to the details of Richard's plan. He described how he had manipulated events, ensuring her demise appeared natural. The cruelty in his voice was unmistakable, each word a testament to his true nature. Evelyn's disbelief turned to a burning rage. She had loved him, trusted him, and he had repaid her with treachery. The depth of his betrayal was unfathomable. Claire's role in the plot was equally shocking. Far from being an innocent bystander, she had been an active participant in the scheme. Her ambition and lack of scruples were staggering. Evelyn's mind reeled with the realization that the people closest to her had conspired against her, turning her life into a living nightmare. The betrayal was a bitter pill to swallow, but Evelyn was not one to be easily defeated. Even in the face of such betrayal, a spark of determination ignited within her. She would not let Richard and Claire get away with their heinous crime. She would find a way to escape this tomb and expose them for the monsters they were. Her unexpected resurrection would be her weapon, and she would use it to gather evidence and allies in her quest for justice. With every ounce of strength she could muster, Evelyn focused on her escape. She recalled the emergency latch she had insisted on installing in the coffin, a precaution she had never thought she would need. Her fingers fumbled in the darkness, finally finding the latch. She pulled it with all her might, the lid creaking open. Fresh air rushed in, and Evelyn inhaled deeply, her resolve strengthening. Evelyn emerged from her grave, her body weak but her spirit unbroken. She had been given a second chance, and she would not waste it. Stealthily, she made her way out of the cemetery, her mind racing with plans. She needed to gather evidence of Richard and Claire's conspiracy. She would approach her lawyer and her trusted friends, those who had not been tainted by deceit. Her heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination as she approached her lawyer's office. She had to move quickly, for Richard and Claire would soon realize she was not dead. Evelyn laid out her story, providing every detail she could remember. Her lawyer, a loyal friend, was shocked but resolute. Together, they would build a case, collecting evidence and preparing for the confrontation that would inevitably come. The next few days were a whirlwind of covert meetings and strategic planning. Evelyn's friends rallied around her, offering their support and resources. They believed in her innocence and were eager to see justice served. Evelyn's strength grew with each passing day, her resolve unshakable. She was determined to confront Richard and Claire, to reveal the truth and reclaim her life. Claire stood beside Richard, her expression cold and calculating. As she began to speak, Evelyn's world tilted further into darkness. Claire revealed her active role in the conspiracy with a chilling nonchalance. She spoke of her ambitions and how she had used her relationship with Richard to manipulate events. Evelyn's mind struggled to process the depth of Claire's betrayal, her heart breaking anew. Claire's voice was steady as she detailed her involvement. She described how she had infiltrated Evelyn's life, gaining her trust and positioning herself as a close friend. Each word dripped with deceit, painting a picture of a woman driven by ruthless ambition. Evelyn felt a cold not form in her stomach as she realized just how deeply Claire had been embedded in her life. Richard listened intently, his eyes never leaving Claire's face. There was a twisted admiration in his gaze, a recognition of a kindred spirit. Claire recounted how she had suggested subtle changes to Evelyn's diet and medication, ensuring that her health deteriorated. The meticulous planning and sheer callousness of their actions left Evelyn reeling. The woman she had considered a friend was nothing more than a predator. Claire's confession continued, each detail more horrifying than the last. She spoke of how she had planted seeds of doubt and mistrust among Evelyn's associates, isolating her from potential allies. Evelyn's hands trembled as she recalled the times she had turned to Claire for support, unaware that she was confiding in the architect of her downfall. The betrayal cut deeper with each revelation. Evelyn's fury grew with every word Claire uttered. The calm, methodical way in which she described her actions was almost more than Evelyn could bear. Claire had not just been an accomplice. She had been a mastermind. Her ambition and lack of scruples were staggering. Evelyn's mind raced with thoughts of revenge, her determination to expose Claire and Richard's treachery solidifying into an unbreakable resolve. As Claire and Richard continued their discussion, Evelyn's sense of betrayal was joined by a newfound respect for Claire's cunning. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but it fueled her determination. She would not let these two destroy her. Evelyn's spirit, though battered, remained unbroken. She listened intently, absorbing every detail, every piece of evidence she could use against them. Claire's arrogance was evident as she spoke of the future she envisioned. She saw herself at Richard's side, enjoying the fruits of their labor. The thought of Claire living the life that had been taken from her was almost too much for Evelyn to bear. But instead of breaking her, it strengthened her resolve. She would see to it that Claire's dreams turned to ashes. Evelyn's mind was a whirlwind of plans as she listened to Claire. She would gather allies, people who had not been tainted by deceit. She would use her unexpected resurrection to her advantage, catching Claire and Richard off guard. Every word Claire spoke was another nail in their coffin, evidence that would be their undoing. Evelyn's heart burned with a fierce determination. As the conversation continued, Evelyn's anger was joined by a sense of purpose. She would not be a passive victim. Claire's betrayal had ignited a fire within her, a drive to see justice served. Evelyn's hands clenched into fists as she imagined the confrontation that would inevitably come. She would expose Claire and Richard for the monsters they were, and she would reclaim her life. Evelyn's mind raced with thoughts of the confrontation. She pictured the shock on Claire's face, the fear in Richard's eyes. The thought gave her strength. She would turn their betrayal into their downfall, using their own words against them. Evelyn's heart pounded with anticipation, her resolve unshakable. She would not rest until Claire and Richard paid for their crimes. With every ounce of strength she could muster, Evelyn focused on her escape. She recalled the emergency latch she had insisted on installing in the coffin, a precaution she had never thought she would need. Her fingers fumbled in the darkness, finally finding the latch. She pulled it with all her might, the lid creaking open. Fresh air rushed in, and Evelyn inhaled deeply, her resolve strengthening. Evelyn emerged from her grave, her body weak but her spirit unbroken. She had been given a second chance, and she would not waste it. Stealthily, she made her way out of the cemetery, her mind racing with plans. She needed to gather evidence of Richard and Claire's conspiracy. She would approach her lawyer and her trusted friends, those who had not been tainted by deceit. Her heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination as she approached her lawyer's office. She had to move quickly, for Richard and Claire would soon realize she was not dead. Evelyn laid out her story, providing every detail she could remember. Her lawyer, a loyal friend, was shocked but resolute. Together, they would build a case, collecting evidence and preparing for the confrontation that would inevitably come. The next few days were a whirlwind of covert meetings and strategic planning. Evelyn's friends rallied around her, offering their support and resources. They believed in her innocence and were eager to see justice served. Evelyn's strength grew with each passing day, her resolve unshakable. She was determined to confront Richard and Claire, to reveal the truth and reclaim her life. Evelyn's mind was a whirlwind of plans and possibilities as she emerged from her premature grave. Her unexpected resurrection would be her greatest weapon against Richard and Claire. She would use this second chance to gather evidence, find allies, and expose their treachery. Evelyn's determination burned brighter with each passing moment. She would not rest until justice was served and Richard and Claire paid for their crimes. Her first step was to reconnect with her lawyer, a loyal friend who had always stood by her. She approached his office with a mix of fear and determination, knowing that she needed his expertise to navigate the legal battle ahead. As she recounted her harrowing experience and the details of Richard and Claire's conspiracy, her lawyer listened with shock and resolve. Together, they began to formulate a plan to gather the evidence needed to bring the traitors to justice. Evelyn's lawyer advised her to move discreetly, to avoid alerting Richard and Claire to her survival. They needed to gather undeniable proof of the conspiracy, and any misstep could ruin their chances. Evelyn agreed, her mind racing with thoughts of how to collect the necessary evidence. She knew that time was of the essence. Richard and Claire would soon realize she was not dead, and they would stop at nothing to silence her permanently. The next few days were a blur of covert meetings and strategic planning. Evelyn reached out to trusted friends and allies, explaining her situation and enlisting their help. She needed their support to gather evidence and prepare for the inevitable confrontation. Her friends, shocked but loyal, rallied around her, offering their resources and expertise. Evelyn's strength grew with each passing day, her resolve unshakable. One of her first moves was to secure the financial records that would prove Richard's greed and manipulation. With the help of her allies, Evelyn gained access to her business accounts and began to uncover the discrepancies that pointed to Richard's machinations. Each piece of evidence she found was a step closer to exposing the truth. Evelyn's heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination as the puzzle pieces began to fall into place. Evelyn knew that confronting Richard and Claire would be dangerous, but she was prepared to face them head-on. She began to document everything, creating a detailed timeline of events that would leave no doubt about their guilt. Her lawyer advised her to keep a low profile, to avoid any actions that might tip off Richard and Claire. Evelyn agreed, her mind focused on the ultimate goal, justice. As Evelyn gathered evidence, she also worked on securing her personal safety. She knew that Richard and Claire would stop at nothing to protect their secret. She took precautions, ensuring that she was never alone and that her movements were carefully monitored. Her allies provided a network of support, watching over her and helping to gather information. Evelyn's determination never wavered, her resolve growing stronger with each passing day. The closer Evelyn got to uncovering the full extent of the conspiracy, the more she realized the depth of Richard and Claire's betrayal. They had manipulated her life, turning her friends and associates against her. Evelyn's heart ached with the weight of their treachery, but she refused to let it break her. She would turn their betrayal into their downfall, using their own actions against them. As the days turned into weeks, Evelyn's plan began to take shape. She had gathered enough evidence to confront Richard and Claire, but she needed the right moment to strike. Her lawyer advised patience, reminding her that a rushed move could jeopardize everything. Evelyn agreed, her mind focused on the endgame. She would wait for the perfect moment, the moment when Richard and Claire would be caught completely off guard. Evelyn's patience paid off. She discovered that Richard and Claire were planning a celebration, believing they were finally free of her. It was the perfect opportunity to confront them, to reveal the truth in front of their friends and associates. Evelyn's heart pounded with anticipation as she prepared for the confrontation. She would expose their treachery, and they would have nowhere to hide. The night of the celebration arrived, and Evelyn was ready. She entered the room with her head held high, her presence commanding attention. Richard and Claire's faces paled as they saw her, alive and resolute. The shock in their eyes was priceless, and Evelyn took a moment to savor it. She stood tall, ready to unleash the storm she had carefully crafted. Her unexpected survival would be the catalyst for their downfall. Evelyn began to speak, her voice steady and filled with conviction. She laid out the evidence she had gathered, detailing every step of Richard and Claire's conspiracy. The room was charged with tension as she revealed the truth, each word a nail in their coffin. Richard and Claire's facade crumbled, their guilt evident to everyone present. Evelyn's heart pounded with a mix of fear and triumph. As Evelyn finished her speech, the room erupted in chaos. Richard and Claire were confronted by their friends and associates, their lies exposed for all to see. Evelyn's lawyer stepped forward, presenting the legal evidence that would ensure their downfall. The time for justice had come, and Evelyn would see it through to the end. Her determination had carried her this far, and she would not rest until Richard and Claire paid for their crimes. The night of the grand confrontation arrived, and Evelyn was resolute. She walked into the grand hall where Richard and Claire were celebrating, their faces masks of smug satisfaction. The room fell silent as Evelyn made her entrance, her presence commanding attention. The guests, unaware of the drama about to unfold, watched in confusion and curiosity. Richard's expression morphed from smugness to shock as he saw Evelyn standing there, very much alive. Evelyn stood tall, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. She locked eyes with Richard, his shock slowly turning to panic. Claire, standing beside him, gasped, her face paling as the realization hit. Evelyn's gaze swept the room, taking in the astonished faces of friends and acquaintances. She drew a deep breath, ready to unveil the truth and expose the betrayal that had nearly cost her her life. With a voice steady and strong, Evelyn began to speak. She recounted her harrowing experience, her unexpected awakening in the coffin, and her desperate escape. The room was deathly silent, every eye fixed on her. Richard and Claire stood frozen, unable to interrupt as Evelyn laid out the details of their conspiracy. Each word she spoke was a dagger, cutting through their facade and revealing the monsters beneath. Evelyn produced the evidence she had meticulously gathered, each piece a testament to Richard and Claire's treachery. She presented financial records showing Richard's embezzlement and manipulation. She detailed the timeline of events, illustrating how they had orchestrated her death. The guests murmured in disbelief, the atmosphere thick with tension. Richard and Claire's faces were masks of horror as their world began to crumble. As Evelyn continued, she revealed Claire's active role in the plot. She described how Claire had infiltrated her life, pretending to be a friend while plotting her demise. Claire's ambition and ruthless nature were laid bare for all to see. The guests, who had once admired Claire's charm, now saw her true colors. Evelyn's heart ached with the weight of betrayal, but her resolve never wavered. Richard attempted to interject, his voice shaky and desperate. He tried to deny the accusations, but the evidence was irrefutable. Evelyn's lawyer stepped forward, presenting the legal documents that proved Richard's guilt. The guests turned on Richard, their disbelief turning to anger. Evelyn felt a surge of triumph as Richard's lies were dismantled, his true nature exposed for all to see. Claire, seeing the tide turn against her, tried to flee, but Evelyn was prepared. She had anticipated this move and had allies ready to intercept. Claire's path was blocked, her desperation palpable. Evelyn's friends, loyal and true, stood firm, ensuring that justice would be served. The room was a maelstrom of emotions as the confrontation reached its peak. Evelyn's heart pounded, her determination unshakable. With a final, powerful declaration, Evelyn exposed the full extent of the conspiracy. She spoke of her pain, her betrayal, and her determination to see justice done. The room erupted in chaos as the guests confronted Richard and Claire. Evelyn's lawyer moved swiftly, ensuring that the legal process would commence immediately. Richard and Claire's downfall was imminent, their once unshakable confidence shattered. Evelyn stood back, watching as Richard and Claire were led away. The weight of the past weeks lifted from her shoulders, replaced by a sense of vindication. She had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. Her unexpected resurrection had been the catalyst for justice, and she had seized the opportunity with unwavering resolve. Evelyn's heart swelled with a mix of relief and triumph. As the guests began to disperse, many approached Evelyn, offering their support and apologies. They had been blind to Richard and Claire's true nature, but now they saw the truth. Evelyn's friends gathered around her, their loyalty and love a balm to her wounded heart. She knew that the road ahead would still be challenging, but she was not alone. Together, they would rebuild and move forward. The legal battle that followed was intense, but Evelyn was prepared. With her lawyer and allies by her side, she faced each challenge head-on. Richard and Claire's crimes were laid bare in court, their punishment swift and just. Evelyn reclaimed her life and her fortune, but more importantly, she reclaimed her sense of self. She had faced the ultimate betrayal and emerged stronger for it. Evelyn's journey was far from over, but she faced the future with renewed hope. She had proven that resilience and justice could prevail, even in the darkest of times. The scars of betrayal would remain, but they were a testament to her strength. Evelyn's heart was filled with gratitude for those who had stood by her and a fierce determination to honor their loyalty. As she looked towards the future, Evelyn knew that she had been given a second chance. She would use it wisely, building a life filled with purpose and integrity. The shadows of the past would not define her. Instead, they would be the foundation upon which she would build anew. Evelyn's story was one of resilience, justice, and hope, a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Evelyn stood firm, her resolve unshakable as she embarked on her quest for justice. The courtroom was filled with an air of anticipation, the tension palpable. With her lawyer by her side, Evelyn was ready to face Richard and Claire once more. Her heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination, but she knew she had the truth on her side. The time had come to expose their treachery and reclaim her life. Her lawyer presented the meticulously gathered evidence, each piece a damning testament to Richard and Claire's crimes. Financial records, witness testimonies, and detailed timelines painted a clear picture of their conspiracy. The judge and jury listened intently, the weight of the evidence undeniable. Evelyn watched as Richard and Claire squirmed, their confidence eroding with each passing moment. Richard's attempts to defend himself were futile. His lies unraveled under the scrutiny of the court, his true nature laid bare for all to see. Claire, equally desperate, tried to shift blame, but the evidence against her was overwhelming. Evelyn's heart ached with the betrayal she had endured, but her determination never wavered. She had come too far to let them escape justice now. The courtroom was a battleground, each side presenting their case with fervor. Evelyn's lawyer was relentless, his arguments sharp and precise. He painted a vivid picture of the deception and greed that had driven Richard and Claire to their heinous acts. The jury watched in rapt attention, the gravity of the situation sinking in. Evelyn's courage and resilience shone through, a beacon of hope in the midst of the storm. As the trial progressed, Evelyn's friends and allies took the stand, their testimonies reinforcing the case against Richard and Claire. They spoke of Evelyn's integrity, her dedication to her work, and the trust she had placed in those who had betrayed her. Their words were a powerful reminder of the person Evelyn had been and the person she was determined to become once more. Richard and Claire's defense crumbled under the weight of the evidence. Their attempts to paint themselves as victims fell flat, their manipulations transparent. The jury saw through their deceit, their sympathy firmly with Evelyn. The judge's stern gaze never wavered, his disdain for the defendants clear. Evelyn felt a surge of hope. Justice was within her grasp. The day of the final verdict arrived, and the courtroom was filled with a tense silence. Evelyn's heart pounded as the judge read the charges, each word echoing through the room. Guilty. The word rang out like a bell, a resounding affirmation of the truth. Richard and Claire were led away, their faces masks of despair. Evelyn felt a weight lift from her shoulders, her quest for justice finally realized. Evelyn's victory in the courtroom was just the beginning. The legal battles were far from over, but she faced them with newfound strength. She worked tirelessly with her lawyer to ensure that Richard and Claire's assets were seized, their ill-gotten gains returned. Evelyn's determination to see justice served extended beyond her personal vendetta. She wanted to ensure that no one else would suffer at their hands. The media followed Evelyn's journey closely, her story a beacon of hope and resilience. Interviews and articles painted her as a symbol of justice, a woman who had faced insurmountable odds and emerged victorious. Evelyn used her platform to advocate for others who had been wronged, her voice a powerful tool for change. She had turned her pain into purpose, her betrayal into a catalyst for justice. Evelyn's personal life began to heal as well. She reconnected with friends and family, their support a balm to her wounded heart. The bonds that had been strained by Richard and Claire's machinations began to mend, strengthened by the shared ordeal. Evelyn's journey had been a crucible, but she emerged from it with a renewed sense of purpose and a deeper appreciation for those who had stood by her. The financial recovery was a long process, but Evelyn faced it with the same determination that had carried her through the trial. She rebuilt her businesses, instilling them with the integrity and transparency that Richard had tried to destroy. Her employees, inspired by her resilience, rallied around her, their loyalty unwavering. Evelyn's empire was reborn, stronger and more ethical than ever. Evelyn's quest for justice had transformed her. She was no longer the naive woman who had trusted blindly, but a warrior forged in the fires of betrayal and revenge. Her journey had taught her the value of resilience, the importance of standing up for oneself, and the power of justice. Evelyn's story was one of triumph, a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the unyielding pursuit of what is right. As Evelyn looked towards the future, she felt a sense of peace. The scars of the past would always be with her, but they were a reminder of her strength and resilience. She had faced the darkest of times and emerged victorious. Her story was far from over, but she faced the future with hope and determination. Evelyn's journey had been one of pain and betrayal, but it was also a journey of justice, triumph, and renewal. Evelyn stood on the threshold of a new beginning, her heart filled with hope and determination. The legal battles were behind her, and the scars of betrayal had begun to heal. She had emerged from the darkness, stronger and wiser. Evelyn's journey had been harrowing, but it had also been transformative. She was ready to rebuild her life, to forge a new path filled with integrity and purpose. With the support of her loyal friends and allies, Evelyn began the process of rebuilding her empire. Her businesses had suffered under Richard's deceit, but Evelyn was determined to restore them to their former glory. She instilled a new sense of purpose and transparency, ensuring that her companies operated with the highest ethical standards. Evelyn's employees, inspired by her resilience, rallied around her, their loyalty unwavering. Evelyn's personal life also began to blossom. She reconnected with family members and friends who had stood by her during her darkest hours. Their unwavering support had been a beacon of hope, and Evelyn was determined to nurture those relationships. She realized the importance of surrounding herself with people who truly cared for her, who would stand by her no matter what. The bonds she forged were stronger than ever. As she moved forward, Evelyn found solace in helping others. She used her experience to advocate for those who had been wronged, becoming a voice for justice and integrity. She partnered with organizations dedicated to supporting victims of fraud and betrayal, sharing her story to inspire and empower others. Evelyn's journey had given her a new sense of purpose, and she was determined to make a positive impact. Evelyn's businesses began to thrive once more. The changes she implemented brought a renewed sense of energy and commitment. Her companies were no longer just about profit. They were about making a difference. Evelyn's vision of ethical leadership resonated with her employees and clients, creating a ripple effect of positive change. Her success was a testament to the power of resilience and integrity. The media continued to follow Evelyn's story, but now the focus was on her remarkable recovery and the impact she was making. Interviews and articles highlighted her journey from betrayal to triumph, painting her as a symbol of hope and perseverance. Evelyn embraced this role, using her platform to promote her message of integrity and justice. She had turned her pain into a powerful tool for change. Evelyn's journey also brought new opportunities for personal growth. She pursued interests and passions that she had neglected during her tumultuous marriage. Evelyn took up painting, finding peace and expression in her art. She traveled to places she had always dreamed of visiting, experiencing the world with a renewed sense of wonder. Each new adventure was a step towards healing and self-discovery. The love and support of her friends were a constant source of strength for Evelyn. They had been her rock during the darkest times, and now they celebrated her victories with her. Evelyn cherished these relationships, knowing that true friendship was a rare and precious gift. She made it a point to be there for her friends as they had been there for her, creating a circle of trust and loyalty. Evelyn also began to explore new professional opportunities. She was invited to speak at conferences and events, sharing her story and insights with a wider audience. Her experiences had given her a unique perspective on resilience and leadership, and she was eager to inspire others. Evelyn's journey had transformed her into a sought-after speaker and mentor, her wisdom and strength touching countless lives. The legal battles, though behind her, had left a lasting impact on Evelyn. She continued to work with her lawyer and allies to ensure that justice was upheld. Evelyn was committed to preventing others from falling victim to the kind of betrayal she had endured. Her efforts extended beyond her personal case, as she advocated for stronger protections and reforms to prevent fraud and corruption. Evelyn's newfound sense of purpose and hope permeated every aspect of her life. She approached each day with gratitude and determination, knowing that she had been given a second chance. The pain of the past was a part of her story, but it did not define her. Evelyn's journey was one of renewal, of finding strength in adversity and turning it into a force for good. As she looked to the future, Evelyn felt a sense of peace and optimism. She had faced the darkest of times and emerged victorious, her spirit unbroken. Evelyn's story was a testament to the power of resilience and the human spirit. She had transformed her pain into purpose, her betrayal into a catalyst for change. Evelyn's journey was far from over, but she faced it with hope and determination. Evelyn's life was a testament to the power of second chances. She had rebuilt her world from the ashes, stronger and more resilient than ever. Her journey had been one of pain and betrayal, but it had also been one of triumph and renewal. Evelyn's story was an inspiration to all who heard it, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. Her future was bright, filled with endless possibilities. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey with Evelyn. Her story of resilience, betrayal, and triumph has been nothing short of inspiring. But the journey doesn't end here. Our next story will touch your heart just as deeply. Imagine a son, embarrassed by his humble father, presenting him as just a chauffeur. But when he discovers what his father had planned all along, he is left paralyzed with shock. The twists and turns of this emotional tale will leave you breathless and longing for more. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on these captivating stories. And if you'd like to support our work, check out the pinned comment for a link to buy me a coffee. Your contributions help us continue bringing you the best in emotional storytelling every day. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you in the next story.